Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to another Africam show brought to you by explore.org. My name's Ben Coley. I'll be with you for the next 45 minutes and we'll see what we can find on our wonderful selection of cameras at our disposal today. I see we have some people joining us already. Kerry the Yarny Elephant saying good morning to everybody. Jack de Boer from Chesapeake, Virginia. I hope I'm pronouncing your place of origin correctly there, Chesapeake. Dinky, you're also here. Fabulous. And MG Leopard Spots, you're also joining us, as well as Bridget McKinney. Wow, lots of people joining today. But we have started out at the hide today with a large bull elephant who has decided that that's it for his drink, heading back off into the wilds of Hwangi. But I'm sure satiated after what would probably be a couple of 100 liters of moisture, but a nice big elephant. This one, look at him. He's rather beautiful. Amber CO, you have coffee and a blueberry muffin. That sounds like a good plan. Ah, we're just going to relocate, are we, to a different area of the water? No, we're heading off. Not quite sure of my geography at the hide here. But your blueberry muffin sounds very, very nice. I see Casper's third ghost, also with a cup of coffee. Of course, many of you joining us from the States. It's early morning, and is there a better way to start your morning? I'm not so sure there is with an elephant. Have you found some water there? Difficult to see in front of the grass. Or maybe it's time for a bit of a mud wallow. Time for a mud splatter. There's good opportunity for a bit of a mud pack. Soothe the skin from that oppressive African heat. Try and control some of those pesky parasites that do like to live on the skin. W. Bouchard, you're joining from a sunny and warm Toronto. While unfortunately April Owl is joining us from a rainy and cool Connecticut. However, you have a blueberry iced tea. It seems like blueberry is the way forward today, but I'm glad you are happy to be here. But he's a rather beautiful boy, this elephant, and looking very elegant and shiny after his little play around in the water and the mud. All that mud reflecting the light rather beautifully. He looks rather smooth and sheen. Satin elephant for today. DNC, good morning from a sunny Seattle. From what I know about Seattle, which admittedly is probably restricted to things like Grey's Anatomy, it's not sunny very often in Seattle, so I'm glad you're having a nice sunny morning there and that you woke up just in time and that you have some caffeine, a coffee on the go as well. Good morning to Josh Drown and namaste to Zygote as well. Nice to see so many familiar names and faces, and I hope a whole bunch of new people joining us as well, if you are just joining us. It's 45 minutes of commentary over whatever we see on our cameras. And as you can hear, I'm live and interactive. I stumble over my words sometimes and maybe say things I shouldn't. But you are most welcome to send in questions and comments based on what you're seeing or anything you'd like to know in general about African wildlife and conservation. And astronomy, of course, for those of you who know me, that is a very keen area of interest of mine. But many kilograms, many pounds of mud being splashed against the ample frame of this big bull. Looks like very much in his prime, just from his general size and shape when he was walking. I'd say he's probably in his 30s at a guess. He's a big boy, but still hasn't completely finished growing yet. He will get wider across the forehead. Those sunken temples will get deeper. His back will sag with age as well, but very much an elephant in his prime. showering himself with mud, a lot of it going up behind the ears just to help facilitate that cooling mechanism with the veins on the back of the ears. Always amazed how accurately they deposit their stuff. They seem to just sort of fling with reckless abandonment, but always ends up where it needs to go. Very little is wasted. MG leopard spots, do you want to know if it hurts when an elephant breaks a tusk? Well, it's a bit like your teeth, really. It depends where it breaks. Where this one seems to have a broken left tusk as we're looking at it, right tusk as far as the elephant is concerned. I would think that's unlikely that that caused any pain. They have a root just like our teeth do, and then the majority of the tusk, probably two-thirds, if not three-quarters of it, is just ivory or is just tooth. So if that breaks, it breaks and no harm done. But if there is a fracture or damage to the root itself, then yes, that can cause a lot of discomfort. It has been suggested that those sort of unusually aggressive elephants may be due to toothache. There's ideas that during a heavy must period, that the swelling of that temporal gland can actually cause discomfort on the root of the tusks as well. So it rather depends where the breakage occurs. But yeah, it has a sizable bulk, this big bull. Well, it looked like some pelicans in the foreground. It's nice to see. Don't get to see pelicans all too often. Now, we do get two species of pelican down here in southern Africa, but I have to say they are not birds that I see very often. We get the great white and we get the pink-backed. Let's see if I can figure out which ones these are. Great white pelicans. Thank you, Kirsten, for letting me know before I flounder around trying to look at pictures quickly. So beautiful, great white pelicans. But it sounds like we have a giraffe up in Kenya at Oldonyo. Let's go and see if we get a giraffe drinking. We do have a giraffe drinking. Shake of the lips. Double checking, keeping vigilance as best she can. Such a vulnerable, or best as he can, I should say, such a vulnerable position, this, of course. And I am forever amazed with the amount of stresses and strains that must be on those front knee joints. Often underestimated, a giraffe. They're such elegant, beautiful animals that one doesn't think that they could be aggressive. But there's an awful lot of power contained in those legs. And an awful lot of body weight as well. That's not a massive giraffe by any stretch of the imagination, but can easily push 1.5 tons. So, what would that be in pounds? 4,000 pounds? 3 to 4,000 pounds? Yeah, but just like a fleeting glimpse. I did some live at the waterhole for Wild Earth a little bit earlier as well. We had a few giraffe having a drink here, as well as a few elephant bulls. But certainly the highlight of this morning or this afternoon's visit around the cameras was an unexpected leopard sighting at Rosie's Pan. I don't know if anybody was happened to be watching the cameras around that time, but that was beautiful. I think a female, difficult to sex for sure, came down and had a drink and then wandered off to the right into the long grass, appearing and disappearing between the trees the way a leopard should. Alrighty, seems our giraffe has moved off, but we can do the same. We've gone now to Botswana, so a real tour of the country in the first few minutes of the show with a big pod of hippos out of the water. I always wonder what on earth they're finding to graze on there. There can't be a huge amount of palatable grass growing in and amongst that rather leached soil. Lovely to see some little ones waddling around. And you can see that characteristic pinkish hue of a lot of those. Do not worry if you are worried that they are getting sunburnt. They are not getting sunburnt. That is their sunburn defense. That is a special fluid that is secreted from glands within their skin and producing what's called hipposudoric acid and norhipposudoric acid, which coats the skin. And then when it oxidizes, when it comes into contact with the air, it goes this pinkish color. But it's a bit like applying a moisturizing cream to the skin. Just stops it from drying out and from cracking under those intense heat conditions. Remember that African sunlight in the winter, whilst not so intense in terms of the position of the sun, it's generally quite dry, the air down here, so you actually feel it burning your skin a lot more during the winter months. Bridget McKinney, you're saying last week in Mobile, Alabama, some pelicans fell out of the sky after a lightning strike. That's pretty hectic. I've never heard of that happening before. I did see somewhere that a baby hammerhead shark fell out of the sky onto a golf course somewhere in the States, I think, a few days ago. But that was dropped by an osprey that had happened to pick one up. But I've never heard of pelicans getting struck by lightning. But that's pretty crazy. And I suppose it makes perfect sense anywhere within that area. When those charges line up, you want to be elsewhere. But it's an interesting story, Bridget. I'm actually going to go and have a look and see if I can find out some more information on that. I'd be interested to know if it happens more than we hear about. I would imagine most birds are not flying around during a storm cell that's producing lightning, but at 60,000 degrees Celsius plus, you don't want to be anywhere close to it. And you're saying it was 100 miles from the ocean. Wow. Yeah, I shall definitely go and have a look at that. But you never know, weird things happen in this world sometimes. See Kirsten's little chirp in the background there. Was it Sharknado that deposited that little hammerhead shark? Maybe it was. Maybe it was. But nice to see so many hippos out of the water. I saw this yesterday here as well at Camelthorne that the entire pod was lying in exactly the same spot. Obviously, a preferred place, but it's not often you see so many hippos out of the water at the same time at the same place. But it is cooler at the moment. Certainly, that water is cold. And remember, water takes longer to cool down and warm up than the air. That's why we see a lot more crocodiles basking on the land during the winter months. And of course, today is World Crocodile Day. So give thanks to all those crocodilians out there, be they gharials, Nile crocodiles, saltwater crocs, dwarf crocodiles. Amazing, amazing creatures. live in surprising harmony with these hippos. That little youngster at the front would be a lovely little morsel for a croc, but wouldn't be best advised to wander into a group of adult hippos like this and try and snatch a baby. They're looking for trouble as the croc. I think right on cue, we're having a little look at our crocodile cave. There it is, Mr. HUAE 87. You were saying that there was a hippo calf who was quite close to that cave last night. Well, then he needs to learn to not get too close, but a crocodile out of the water, in my opinion, is unlikely to launch a savage attack because they know they've lost the element of surprise. They are mostly at home during or whilst they are in the water, of course. So it may have just been that it couldn't really be bothered. It knew chances of success were minimal. But that's a beautifully constructed cave that the crocodiles have made. When they do make these holes in the bank, they actually sort of bite off chunks with their mouths as opposed to digging so much with their feet. They'll finish it off, but they'll take chunks of mud out, go and wash off their mouth and return. And often a group of them will work together to create a little chamber like that. And you might find quite a few crocodiles sheltering in there, particularly during the winter months because the water is a little bit cooler. Or if the water even was to dry up, keeps them out of the sunlight when it's too hot. There's one thing not being able to thermoregulate and having to warm up, but you also don't want to get too hot, otherwise you're going to suffer the risk of a stroke. But there'll be no breeding, no eggs, no little crocodiles. They don't make nests like that. They'll bury their nests in the sand on the shoreline as opposed to digging massive chambers like that. And temperature hugely important for crocodiles, particularly when it comes to um, the youngsters as well. They do have what is called temperature dependent sex variation, which is always a bit of a mouthful, but just explains how the sex of an embryo is created, if that's the right word, because they're not born with sort of male and female hormones. Is that the right thing to say? Or sex chromosomes, I should say. They don't have sex chromosomes, and the temperature at which those eggs are incubated or are kept at is going to dictate the sex of the youngster. So between 28 to 30 degrees, you're almost guaranteed to get females. At 31 degrees, it's 50-50. 32 degrees, it's all male. And 33 to 34 degrees, better chance of having females again. So it's actually a very small temperature range. We're talking about only about a 6 degree difference between not producing anything and within that 6 degrees, that's going to dictate whether you get baby boys or baby girls. We see the same in tortoises and terrapins as well. As you can see these croc and those hippos living in very close proximity to one another, that unspoken truce between the two of them. Plenty of hippos here, of course. Space becoming a premium as we in winter, water beginning to dry up, and it's not unusual to see quite a few altercations between hippos at these waterholes. And quite a few crocs by the looks of it. We saw some zebras having a drink here the other day. I don't know if we've seen a croc take anything from this dam, but quite a few good-sized crocs, certainly. I'm just having a look at this quick report of this pelican situation because I'm intrigued by that. But I've got something here suggesting that it was how many? 16 pelicans falling out of the sky, and there was a few booms during a thunderstorm. So quite possible. Either that or Armageddon is nigh and things are falling from the sky. I've just seen here that we have apparently seen a crocodile eating something here, but haven't actually seen one grab anything. But you never know. Saw a leopard earlier on today. Maybe we'll see a croc attack. And April Owl, you're saying it's amazing how the crocodiles can work together to make those holes and that they must be very intelligent. I don't know too much about the brain of a crocodile, but I believe that they are considered to be, I think calculating is maybe a word, but whether that or not is just sort of being indoctrinated by this idea of a slow, stealthy assassin that crocodiles are. But that's something else I'll also go and have a look at. Just there must have been some studies done based on how intelligent. There's another croc up there. How intelligent crocodiles are, but I think for reptiles they're pretty intelligent in comparison to other reptiles. I'm not suggesting they're going to be doing algebra and astrophysics in their spare time, but a big animal generally means a slightly bigger brain as well. Bowl of kittens. You're asking what are the hippos eating, and you say it looks like sand. Well, yeah, I also thought the same thing. Bowl of kittens. There must be some young growth coming through there. All animals generally will feed on new shoots that are coming through. So possibly with the proximity to water, the water table will be a bit higher there. Maybe there is some grass that is sort of springing up in and amongst that disturbed sand. I'm sure during the evening they will go further afield and find far better grazing opportunities. But I'm not sure what else they would be eating there. I don't never really hear of hippos practicing lithophagia like the crocodiles do, i.e., eating rocks to assist in digestion. Some people think possibly to help control neutral buoyancy for the crocodiles. But a little bit like birds do the same. Chickens peck at grit and gravel, and we find little stones contained within their gizzards, that mechanical stomach. With the crocodiles eating some pretty solid things like bone and shells from maybe a terrapin. Having some solid objects like that in your stomach will just assist in the digestive process, despite how efficient their stomach is. pH of not much lower than 1, so pretty much hydrochloric acid. It's one of the things they're famous for, their digestive capabilities and their specialized heart, which also sends a lot of carbon dioxide from the heart to the stomach from the carbon dioxide rich blood, which is important in producing stomach acids. Josh Drown, you're saying a hippo got an impala at Juma last night. Wow. That's one way I would not like to go. Enjoying a nice, relaxing drink, and then suddenly there's thrashing and, well, darkness, I would think. Panic. Thrashing, darkness, and panic. I said earlier today, monstrous amount of respect for crocodiles. Yeah, I'm going to have a quick look and see if I can find if there's any studies on crocodile intelligence, though. Really hear of them performing problem solving, but say a very calculated, slow approach to things. I'm just having a quick search online here, and it seems that mugger crocodiles and alligators have been seen balancing sticks on their snouts during nesting season to try and lure birds towards them who might be looking for appropriate nesting material. That's a pretty interesting thing to have the foresight to do that. There have been suggestions that they've been trained to respond to commands, lights, and sounds. Strong spatial memory. And yeah, as I thought, they have a relatively large cerebral cortex and a limbic system, which is associated with vision and behavior regulation, which would make them as well being sort of semi-social animals. The Jack de Boer, you're also saying you remember when Steve, I assume you're referring to the late great Steve Irwin, that he encountered some Nile crocodiles on Crocodile Hunter. I have not seen those episodes, but I'm sure he was most complimentary, an amazing character, and as Bridget McKinney points out as well, wonderful that his children and wife are still so heavily involved in conservation, and Australia Zoo, as far as I know, is still doing very, very well. Just in case you're wondering why we're not visiting some of our other cameras, we do have one or two technical issues in the background, so we are stuck here at Camel Thorn at the moment, but there are worse places to be, and I'm sure once we get those gremlins worked out, we will go visit some other venues, should there be something worth looking at. Josh Drown, you're saying the impala was swimming to avoid a hyena, and that's when it got taken by the crocodile. Sure, hectic. Poor impala, eh? Out of the frying pan into the fire. Still something I've never seen. I've seen crocodiles taking fish, catfish, decent sized catfish. Actually saw it happen at which hide was it? I can't remember. Sable hide? No, it wasn't sable hide. No, the hide in Kruger, not too far from Satara and the Singita Labombo lodges. I forget the name of the hide itself, but saw a crocodile take out a catfish there only a few weeks ago. And I remember a guest when I was working in Tanzania got an amazing photo. It was actually trying to take a picture of a hippo, but in the background managed to get a crocodile in mid sort of jaw snap around a catfish that happened to just launch itself out of the water, jaws and all. So that was very cool to see. But I've never seen a crocodile um, grab an antelope or a wildebeest, and I've obviously not, unfortunately, seen the migration of the wildebeest across the Mara. Zygote, you're saying your tigers love eating crocodiles, and yes, jaguars in South America. I've seen some amazing footage of jaguars swimming out to little islands and grabbing crocodiles from out there. But that just shows you the power of a jaguar. It's one of the things that I have not seen in the wild, which I'd love to, but I've never even visited North America, let alone South America. But it is on the list of places to go to the Pantanal. I would dearly love to see a jaguar, although I know that chances are that you won't see one, even if you do go. But it's up there as well as a giant anteater. That's something else that I've got a thing about giant anteaters. I don't know why. I just think they're amazing things. I'd like to find one of those on my travels as well. But also, just going into the rainforest itself would be pretty amazing. I do enjoy my bugs and my little critters and birds and butterflies, and I imagine it would be just a sensory overload. And I hope one day to be able to get out there and go exploring, even if just for a short period of time. Speaking of incredible hearts, which the crocodile say does have, I've mentioned this yesterday during the daytime, but there's been a new species of snail discovered living around hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the ocean in ridiculously hot temperatures that has basically iron plating on its shell due to the iron content in the water there. And because of the very low oxygenation levels so deep down, this particular snail, it's called a. Ooh, so what was its name? I had two names, but I'm going to go with the volcanic snail was one of the names it was given. But actually has the largest heart or the heaviest heart in comparison to its body weight of any animal in the animal kingdom. It has been discovered. So go and have a look. It's a scaly-footed snail, but also known as a volcanic snail, but lives around hydrothermal vents at the bottom of the oceans. Jean Gale, you're saying you've got an image of a children's picture book with a crocodile doing algebra and astrophysics. I think why not? There's actually a really interesting book. I have to say it's quite heavy going. I got about halfway through it, but it's called Teach Your Dog Astrophysics, and it's written in a very narrative sense between an owner and a dog discussing astrophysics in a real world scenario. Not so much in a way that dogs would understand, but yeah, it's just an interesting take on what is otherwise a very, very complicated topic. So yeah, I think it's called Teach Your Dog Astrophysics or something similar. But who's to say a crocodile couldn't do the same thing? Doing a bit of a scan around to see if there is anything else. Obviously, that's where the fresh water is being pumped in. We saw quite a few zebras drinking from this channel the other day. Most animals will always choose the fresher water. Also, nice to have some running water flowing into that dam just to control sediment buildup, which of course is something the hippos are also doing by moving around, keeping the sediment from settling too much. We have the hippos to thank for a lot of the features in the famous Okavango Delta, keeping those channels open. Robin in Seattle, you're asking why crocodiles lie with their mouths open. It's to control their temperature. They are ectothermic, so cold-blooded, and whilst they do absorb a lot of heat through their skin, through those bony scales, those little protrusions known as osteoderms, they're only so efficient. It's more efficient to try and facilitate heat exchange through the exposed epithelium of the gum, of the tongue, of the soft palate. So they will often lie in the mornings with their mouths open facing towards the sun. Uh, Possibly in the afternoons, you'll see them doing the same thing in the summer months, but facing away from the sun, just trying to lose a little bit of heat, especially when it gets up into close to 50 degrees in areas like this. So it's all about controlling temperature regulation. I love this sort of amphitheater effect that we have here at Camelthorne. We saw the zebras all sort of coming down that steep slope the other day. I wonder how deep it will get during the rainy season. I think we're doing a nice slow pan here, but I guarantee there's lots of things hiding in and amongst this vegetation that we're just not able to see. I wonder if that is a camel thorn itself that we've just scrolled past. There was something large hidden up in the branches there. So camel thorn acacia, or not acacia anymore, will it'll be a Facilia, I expect. Areoloba, and the big flat seed pods they have look a little bit like ears, like earlobes. But there'll be plenty of good nutrition as those seed pods fall onto the ground for Pinyalas and bushbuck and other animals to hoover up. It's a movement on the far right-hand side of the screen, almost going out of shot. I'm not sure if that was birds or little rodenty type things. Some movement there, and I'm sure if we just stay here and scan, we'll find various animals emerging from the shadows to come and have a drink. A beautiful area, rocky face, all that cascading vegetation. Plenty of birds enjoying life in there, I would think. MG leopard spots. Good question. Can a croc flip its tail up over its back and touch its back, or is it more side to side? It's designed to go side to side. It's an incredibly muscular structure designed to propel that great weight forward at serious speeds in the water. The acceleration that they can generate is pretty amazing. I don't think they're designed to go up and down. They probably will do in the process of thrashing, but I think that is more to do with sort of arching of the spine more than the tail itself. But its sort of natural rhythm, its natural movement is to swish side to side to generate forward motion. So that special heart that they've got that can funnel the oxygenated blood to where it's needed. It'll be going to the brain and it will certainly be going to the tail because that is where all the muscles are required for locomotion through the water. Very, very efficient way of dealing with things. Imagine if we could do that. We could hold our breaths and free dive for even further than the amazing people can do already. Nice to see some green around, everything else looking a little bit weathered, but a lot of these trees will have access, say, to the higher water table. It's still nice to see some green, although I'm sure that will change. Another interesting thing I read a few days back now is that we've found an organism. I can't think where it is, possibly Indonesia. And I think it's also an ocean-based organism, which is an animal, but can actually photosynthesize. And I think I'm right in saying it's the first time we've found something that isn't a plant that is able to extract energy from the sun, which is an incredible adaptation if you think about it. Uh, you don't necessarily need so much food. And if I remember rightly, there is some chlorophyll in some of these special cells within the stomach or within the skin. I'm going to have to go and do a bit more reading on how it all works. But that's pretty amazing to think that we found an organism, and who knows how many more are hiding out there that can actually convert sunlight into energy. Walking around with your own solar powered panels on your back, not just energy for motion, but actually energy for the body itself. Bowl of Kittens, next meteor shower. Well, the next most prominent one is usually, he says, hopefully the best one of the year. The Perseid meteor shower normally peaks around the 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th of August. The radiant of that shower, so where most of the shooting stars seem to emanate from, is the constellation of Perseus, who rescued Andromeda in Greek mythology with his winged sandals, although many stories have him riding on the winged horse of Pegasus, although that was more generally associated with the Greek hero Bellerophon. The problem is, and it has been for the last few years, is that is also around the same time as full moon. which might make visibility a little bit more difficult because a lot of meteor showers are quite fast, short meteors. They're generally not long meteors because they're pretty much made up of ice particles, which burn up very quickly when they enter the atmosphere, as opposed to great big chunks of rock, which can penetrate much deeper, leave a much longer, brighter trail in the sky. So it depends what time moonrise is, but yeah, that second week or anywhere really in the first 2 weeks of August is a good time. Probably you can argue the best time. Could be up to 100 meteors an hour. But I often find those estimations are a little bit optimistic. I tried to capture the Geminid meteor shower whilst out in Namibia, close to Sossusvlei, in an international dark sky reserve with new moon conditions. I could see Gemini clearly, and in 5 hours of photographs, I captured two shooting stars, where they could be up to 200 an hour, according to the sort of online statistics. So it all depends on where the Earth hits that stuff in space. Remember, a meteor shower is caused usually from a comet, which as it gets closer to the sun, it melts, it leaves behind little particles of dust and ice. And then as the Earth is orbiting the sun, it sort of collides into this dust cloud that's been left behind. Always say it's a bit like flies exploding on your windscreen when you're driving down the road. So it depends. Are we hitting the center of that debris trail? Are we just grazing it, a little side swipe? That's going to have a massive implication as to how many shooting stars you see on a given night. But I like the fact this croc is just hanging out by his front door. And a very good chance we'll reverse back into there. There's probably a big chamber at the back, as I say, where multiple crocodiles will share some time. Warm up the other side for a little bit. But good advice, if you see a little cave close to a waterhole, don't go crawling inside it, I would suggest. Having just said that it may share, almost as if this one has just said, nope, nobody else is allowed. I'm going to take up the entire entranceway. Okay, well, unfortunately, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining and for your questions and comments and some interesting stuff, particularly about the pelicans. I'm going to see what else I can find out about that, as well as crocodile brain power. And I'm sorry that we weren't able to look at a few more cameras today, just say one or two technical hiccups in the background, but I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you very much, and we will see you next time.